L'alimentation ne suffit pas. Un, deux, un, deux. Test. Merci.
Mon père était entré.
y va? Sabah al-Khair, bonjour. Ravi de vous retrouver en cette troisième journée de l'AIF.
It's a pleasure to see you on the third day of the Africa Investment Forum. We've had a long 2 days of exchanges, and next year we will have women in the plenary and dedicate the plenary to women's affairs. Madam Minister, ladies and gentlemen, we're meeting here today for a high-level panel dedicated to AFAWA, organized under the AIF Investment Forum Days 2025 in the magnificent city of Rabat. Sinfal, my friend, knows this city very well. I'm sure she'll agree with me, and you can ask her about that. We're here today because of a conviction. The economic potential of Africa can only develop if we fully tap into the entrepreneurial strength of the women on the continent. Do you not agree? That is why I say that we need a plenary for women, dedicated to women. We talk about cooperatives, aid, talk about the economy, we talk about many different things. We're not talking about all of these things. We're not talking about an agenda that is part of the development model. We are here looking at one of the strongest investment opportunities. There is real business and growth to be had. There is a lot of profitability to tap into. Just to give you some data, 24% of new businesses are led by women, the highest percentage in the world. Those that create and develop here in Morocco are women with higher education diplomas, more women creating businesses than men. Over 80% of the money is reinvested in human capital.
Pourtant, le déficit de financement est toujours là. On est à un besoin de 50 milliards de dollars pour pouvoir faire décoller tout cela.
$50 billion for this to take off. And this is
we are going to consider this as
an area where barriers need to be eliminated.
To transform this to a specific opportunity, AFAWA was created with this in mind. $1.33 billion has already been disbursed to 200 partner financial institutions. We saw this yesterday during the morning meeting, that this is no longer a promise, it's a proof of concept. So today we are here to explore how we are going to engage in mixed finance to increase financial flows in women's companies, make them competitive, stable, and have a strong impact in the countries where they operate. Our first speaker is Jemima Miserenjoki, a director in the African Development Bank.
Director of Gender, Women and Civil Society at the African Development Bank. Dr. Jemima, the floor is yours. You're welcome.
Minister Niale Kaba, Minister of Economy, Planning and Development of Côte d'Ivoire, Ms. Marie-Laura Keane Olubade, Senior Vice President at the African Development Bank, Excellencies, partners, investors, women in the room, those joining us on the live stream, good morning. We are gathered here in Rabat, a city that has stood for centuries at the crossroads of trade and civilization. And this morning we stand at another crossroads, a financial one. For decades, the narrative around financing for women in Africa was written in a language of deficit. We spoke of the $42 billion financing gap at AFAWA's inception in 2019. This figure has evolved since. We spoke of vulnerability. We spoke of women as a risk to be managed. We talked about barriers. But this morning, I'm calling on all of us to change that narrative. I want us to start with a different number, 194 million. So if you leave this room with anything this morning, leave with 194 million. That is the number of women entrepreneurs in Africa today. By 2035, that number will surge to 239 million. We have the highest rate of female entrepreneurship in the world. This is not a vulnerable group. This is the most dynamic and most underserved investment asset on our continent. We are not here to discuss charity this morning. We are here to discuss how to capitalize on the most important and potent engine of our economic transformation. We are here to set the scene for a conversation about women as investment champions. I really like that title of this session, Women as Investment Champions, because we are, because they are. But this conversation is not happening in a vacuum. It is the heartbeat of the African Development Bank's 10-year strategy. Our goal is a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and integrated Africa. But let me be clear that you cannot build a resilient continent when 50% of your economic engine is running on empty. You cannot build an integrated Africa when women traders can't cross borders with capital. That is why our gender strategy made a very bold pivot. We moved from only mainstreaming gender to actively financing it. We committed to Pillar 1 of our gender strategy, empowering women through access to finance and markets. Why? Because the data told us something profound. Women-led SMEs in Africa are not just numerous, they are resilient. Their non-performing loan rates are consistently lower than the market average. In our investments, it sits below 1%. And we also know from data that women reinvest 90% of their income back into their families, into their communities. This strategy also aligns very well with our new president's cardinal points for a sovereign Africa that are the blueprint at the core of what we have been doing in AFAWA. The first cardinal point on unlocking Africa's capital power. The president has challenged us to make every dollar work like $10. Through AFAWA, we are doing exactly that. By using blended finance and guarantees, we are de-risking lending and unlocking billions that were sitting dormant in commercial banks. Today, our leverage ratio is already at 7. By the time we reach our targets, it will be at 13. He has also asked us to turn demographics into a dividend. The president reminds us that our youth and our women are not a burden, they are the engine, and AFAWA is the fuel that's running that engine. He has asked us to build resilient infrastructure. When we finance a woman in agribusiness or manufacturing, we are building the soft and hard infrastructure that our local economies need. So where do we stand today? With AFAWA, we are not talking about what if, we are talking about what is. Through AFAWA, we are shifting the market. We have cumulatively approved $2.8 billion in financing. Out of that $2.8 billion, $1.3 billion is already in the hands of women entrepreneurs. We are working with 195 financial institutions across 45 countries. These might just look like good numbers on a spreadsheet, but they are not. Behind these numbers, we are talking about Christelle Egwe in Côte d'Ivoire. Through Palm Holding, she launched the first processing unit in West Africa to produce palm oil ponds industrially. She's redefining agro-processing in Côte d'Ivoire. We are talking about Pauline Otila in Kenya. Her company, Epiculture Venture, is integrating over 10,500 local beekeepers into a global value chain. That is supply chain integration. We're talking about leaders like Mariam Zain in Mauritania, who spoke to us yesterday, who's leading in the cement and construction sector, a very male-dominated sector. She's building the physical infrastructure of this continent. We know, however, the journey is not finished. The gap is narrowing, but it is not closed. And we are here to make sure it narrows even faster. This morning, we are here to discuss blended finance. This is our strategic tool to bridge the remaining distance. We need to collectively understand how to use concessional capital, not just as a safety net, but as a magnet to crowd in private equity and commercial debt. We are here to prove that investing in women is a smart, high-yield financial strategy. And as you listen to the panels and the entrepreneurs today, I ask you to change the lens in which you see them. Do not look for the risk. Look for the return. The architecture is ready, the strategy is sound, the women are ready, and the only question remaining is, are you ready to invest in the champions of Africa's economic future? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jemima Mesere-Njoki. If you have to remember something, is that woman as investment champion. And not talking about what if, but about what is. And you have highlighted many things and ideas and insights to move forward. Alors, nous allons poursuivre notre séquence d'ouverture en accueillant deux dirigeants exceptionnels qui façonnent le
our opening ceremony by inviting two exceptional leaders of the investment agenda in Africa. First,
Niale Kaba, ministre du Plan, du Développement,
Niale Kaba, Minister of Plan, Development and Governance in African Development Bank in Côte d'Ivoire. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Madame la vice-présidente principale, chères sœurs,
Dear Sister, Madam Vice Principal, Senior Vice President, the Director of the Women and Civil Society Department, distinguished investors, partners, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol duly observed. It is a pleasure for me to meet with you today during the half-hour event on the financing for women entrepreneurs. In the past few days, the Africa Investment Forum has seen discussions on major projects and billions of dollars during the boardrooms. These structural projects are essential for the structural transformation and economic development of African countries. I would like to state here, however, that it is equally essential to make for a better allocation of private capital based on equity and objective risk. Ladies and gentlemen, everywhere in Africa, women are the spine of our economies. They are in agricultural value chains, dominate SMEs, and proximity services. The African continent has the highest entrepreneurial rate for women in the world at 24%. As the moderator said a while ago, this is expanding, and we are expecting to have 239 million women entrepreneurs by the end of 2025, 2035, I correct myself. In spite of this dynamism, everywhere, their ambition is stymied because of prejudices that persist and limiting practices. 70 million entrepreneurs in sub-Saharan Africa face a financing deficit of $40 million US. This is partly due to poor financial inclusion in banking, because only 1 in 5 women has access to a bank account, professional bank account. These are not just statistics. They show the talent that is limited, initiatives that is ignored, and economic potential that is not exploited. We cannot continue with this inequality in capital allocation if we wish our continent to emerge. In fact, the data available shows that there is a clear opportunity for investment in women. First, the risk argument is not borne out by the facts. Women entrepreneurs present a low investment risk. Secondly, they represent quality investments because of their strong impact on society. This has also been said that they reinvest 90% of their revenue back into the business. These inequalities are the systemic market failures on 2 levels: the requirement of loan guarantees and the subjective perception of risk. Women entrepreneurs in Africa, given their socio-economic characteristics, are mostly excluded from the financial system because they struggle to provide the required collateral. It is because of these market failures that we can see that profits are guaranteed, but the capital is not available. This is why institutions like the African Development Bank must intervene. This is where mixed financing becomes relevant, because it helps to combine public resource, concessional financing, and private investment. It's in a strategic role, which is to replace the collateral that women so often lack. Thanks to mechanisms such as shared risk and guarantees, it becomes possible to reduce the risk or the perceived risk as perceived by the banks, and it would help to attract private capital towards this group of women interpreters or entrepreneurs with their strong capital, with their strong economic base. The AFAWA initiative is important. For example, AFAWA has already covered $2.2 billion, with $1.34 billion already disbursed for women through partnerships with 195 financial institutions in 45 regional member countries. AFAWA has also mobilized $1.7 billion to support 18,000 African women entrepreneurs. Next to AFAWA, my country, Côte d'Ivoire, has created a national mechanism to enable the securitization of the entire value chain for financing. We use mixed financing to facilitate access to credit for women's enterprises, which are about 20% of the formal economy in Côte d'Ivoire. The mechanisms include the following: the national status of student entrepreneurs. We are working at the roots, at the grassroots, by offering young girls a legal framework, mentoring, and credibility before their very first bank loans. I would also like to refer to the SME One-Stop Shop. This mixed financing vehicle includes the State Guarantee Corporation to provide guarantees so that banks will open their coffers to women's entrepreneurs. I would also like to refer to FACI, the support for Côte d'Ivoire, which is supported by Ms. Dominique Ouattara, the First Lady, which finances income-generating activities for almost 70,000 women since it was created in 2012, with an reimbursement rate of 98% so far, and an interest rate of barely 1%. Gender bonds, entities like Ecobank Côte d'Ivoire have issued, with the support of the IFC and others, gender bonds to support women's enterprises, such as the farmer bond or the livestock bond, which has supported 3,500 women's businesses. The successes of this program show that mixed financing is a powerful lever to trigger the economic development of women by producing guarantees and attracting private sector investment, which would lead us to greater financial inclusiveness. Mixed financing is a strategic tool and an innovation that we should use widely to increase access to capital for our entrepreneur sisters to develop their potential. I would therefore like to call on our governments, first of all, to simplify procedures that ease access to financing for women, access to innovation or innovative financial institutions, developing tailor-made products, and changing the risk perception. Let us support AFAWA and similar initiatives. Lastly, I call on these valiant African women, continue your ambitions, because your success is the success of an entire continent. Our women entrepreneurs are gold mines that are not well serviced in Africa. We just need to provide them with financial instruments and a strong political will so that together we will be able to transform this huge potential into a collective victory. On this note, I would like to wish you fruitful discussions and thank you for your kind attention.
Merci. Madame Son Excellence Niale Kaba, Ministre.
Thank you, Madame Niale Kaba, Ministry of the Economy, Planning and Development and Governor of the African Development Bank for Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you for highlighting various subjects, the first of which is that access, the AFAWA should be combined with local systems. You have mentioned all the systems that Côte d'Ivoire has established to help to scale our work. You also referred to the value chain. This was raised yesterday because between the request of the entrepreneur and the final issuing of financing, there are various steps or procedures that must be followed. And another point mentioned that you have referred to, and the Côte d'Ivoire's experience, it serves as an example, is the one-stop shop, because that is how we incubate and we have the multiplier effect. We should have projects with under AFAWA, and we should have channels to familiarize women with the entrepreneurship. Finally, and you talked about a reimbursement rate of 98%. Bankers listening to this will rush to help, and the risk evaluation or risk assessment model should be somewhat out of the box. And I think we need to do a lot in terms of monitoring and evaluation as well. Much was done. And now I would like to invite another speaker, Ms. Banilo Akin, Senior Vice President of the African Development Bank, to take the floor. Thank you. Ms. Marilo Ulugode.
Madame le ministre du Plan,
Madam Minister of Economy, Planning and Development of the African and Governor of the African Development Bank, dear sisters, the Director, Dr. John Maïman Njuki, dear entrepreneurs, distinguished guests. A few moments ago, Dr. Njuki diagnosed the opportunity, a clear opportunity which is not much used, women as a class of high-performing entrepreneurs. The minister also talked about, in a very eloquent address, which we will delve into later. She defined the essential framework to seize these opportunities. We felt the political will and the structural reforms that are indispensable for this support. For my part, I will speak as a development banker to tell you about concrete products to transform these opportunities into reality. We all know the issues at stake in Africa. At the African Development Bank, we have decided that we would not consider business as usual, but we would continue with innovation. We know that public funds alone will not be sufficient to finance the future that we all want, which is why we must always be inventive in financial matters, radically so, to mobilize large-scale private financing. And this is the revolution of mixed finance. We are often, when referring to this, talking about guarantees. And this is right because it is to create a financial bulwark and help banks to reduce risk and real and perceived risks. However, we are not going to talk about protection and defense this morning. We should take the offensive, and we need mixed financing mechanisms that are innovative. One of them is performance-based incentives. This has an extremely powerful impact. We will not wait for banks to lend to women. We reward those who take up the challenge, who decide to do this well and do this sustainably. How does it work? It's very simple. If we have a partner bank which meets our objectives, for example, in terms of increasing the share of their portfolio that is dedicated to women's SMEs, or if it decides to support difficult sectors such as agriculture, we provide supplemental concessional financing. And specifically, this allows our financial institutions to reduce interest rates or processing fees for their clients. This is important because we go to the root, to the heart of the matter, which is the cost of credit. A commercial bank can now provide competitive rates to an entrepreneur, and this is a win-win situation from our perspective. We are already seeing results. The results are concrete. In Tunisia, we have worked with BCS Bank, and we have deployed this mechanism within AFAWA, and we have supported over 6,000 women entrepreneurs in Tunisia with important tools. In South Africa, we work with ABSA, and the impact is even more impressive, and we have realized that for every $1 million of financing by donors, we have generated $75 million for women entrepreneurs. So 1 to 75 ratio. This is our development finance model, 1:50, 1 to 75 ratios. That is not expenditure. This is a investment. Very few financial instruments, you will agree with me, can enable us to work with such efficiency. This financial inventiveness should, of course, be extended. And we today are at the heart of the campaign of 16 days of activism against violence against women. This helps for social protection and strengthens the judicial system. But there is a dimension that we as financiers should emphasize. For the economic autonomy of women is one of the most solid bulwarks against vulnerability. Financial exclusion, in our view, can be viewed as invisible violence. Maybe it leaves no scars, but it destroys the destinies, as Madam Minister said, of women. To refuse capital to a woman because she lives in a rural area or because she's young means to deprive her of knowledge, choices, and hope. And in our view, the digital environment is an extremely important tool, and technology helps us to become a strong ally to overcome these barriers. The digital environment helps us to leverage technology to change the dynamic. A woman entrepreneur in Nairobi or Cotonou does not necessarily need physical space. She just needs a platform. And I think yesterday we met a few women who work on digital platforms. I would like to conclude by saying that the development challenges are huge, but we must be daring at a time when Africa needs to prove that it can implement innovative growth models, and in our view, models which are inclusive, where capital works patiently and intelligently for sustainable development. I will leave you with these words and remind you that we are talking about not just finance, but dignity, freedom, and an Africa that must build its own infrastructure, that must develop through its women, with its women, for its women. And I hope this is the tenor of our discussions today.
Thank you, Ramondiro Achem, Senior Vice President of the African Development Bank. You have enumerated a certain number of initiatives, and some of which for example, the idea of talking about women as an active group. This is a paradigm shift. We are talking about investment. Secondly, you have talked about financial invincibility, not only at the public sector, but to attract private investors. And obviously, the offensive spirit, we are not defending anymore. This is a position of the past. Performance-based incentives, in other words, how to create dynamism amongst the institutional partners who would be motivated to develop and to help the clients. Financial exclusion, yes, it is a form of violence. It is true, digital as a beneficial, because we should not forget that it allows the woman to be free in their activities, that she can manage her household, but also her work. Thinking that women should also take this is compatible. Let me indicate some examples that have worked in Morocco. Kindergartens been built in courts and in ministries. This increases the productivity of the two institutions. Can you imagine if this can be done at the public level? Yes, audacity, this is what it means. And we will see this with cross perception of African entrepreneurs for the women who illustrate challenges, resilience. To preside over this portion, it is a pleasure to have with me Yasin Fall. I would really like to ask you a question before she takes over. Yasin Fall, you're welcome. Before giving you the floor, and given that this is the morning of day 3 of the African Investment Forum, Yasin Fall is the special representative of the ADB at this forum. So I would like to ask you a question which is in advance in terms of the communique that will be published. Can you tell us what are the big guidelines, indications that emanate from this meeting during these 3 days? What are the trends? Maybe this would be a scoop. And tell us, do women have a priority position? Good day.
À tous et à toutes.
Let me get the microphone working. Good day.
Good morning, everyone.
Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Bonjour, Moustapha. C'est un plaisir de vous retrouver.
Oh, you miss Rabat already? Of course, all the time. But anytime I come back to Rabat, I see that the city has been changed. I go back to my house, my supermarket, and at some stages I get a bit lost. So, obviously, we are extremely happy to come back to Rabat And most especially, we are happy to see the dynamism, the energy around the crucial stakes in terms of our continent. We can feel this convergence. First and foremost, as you know, the AF, we organize market dates, and this is to do business. Doing business with a covenant. The idea is to invest and to bring all the stakeholders to meet each other, to interact, either to identify new products or to mobilize capital, and also to transform those capital onto a covenant. And I believe that women are at the very center of the spectrum. During these last 3 days, we have seen women involved in all the segments, whether you're talking about organizations, B2B. Yesterday, I met a woman who works in the aviation sector who came here to look for funding. We have had sessions yesterday, very enriching sessions, I must say, with exceptional clients, developers of big projects. You mentioned Mariam Zain, who is involved in the cement sector and who has created more than 1,000 jobs. So I believe today we would meet women who are in the banking industry. Well, let me leave you and you welcome your invitees, and I would meet you later.
Je voudrais donc inviter des femmes exceptionnelles, extraordinaires, qui sont une représentation de ce que nous voulons réaliser et qui reprennent un peu ce que Madame la ministre et la vice-présidente principale de la BAD ont dit ce matin. La conversation d'aujourd'hui porte sur la rupture, la levée des barrières pour avoir une croissance plus inclusive. Nous allons donc entendre 2 femmes remarquables qui seront donc invitées sur cette estrade et qui transforme l'agriculture rurale au Nigeria. Et Fomiko, qui a transformé l'agriculture en chaîne de valeur et qui a sauvé les agriculteurs de la pauvreté, ainsi que les réfugiés. Donc, permettez-moi d'inviter Yemisi et Ifemiko.
So I'll start with you, Yemisi. Yemisi is the founder and CEO of Sultry International. She has revolutionized cassava processing in Nigeria.
Vous avez donc révolutionné la transformation du manioc au Nigeria. Elle est donc la voie mondiale pour l'autonomisation des femmes dans l'agroalimentaire. Bonjour Femiko, qui est la cofondatrice et directrice générale de Cotscots. Et Fomiko a donc connecté l'Ouganda avec le Japon pour pouvoir mettre en place une chaîne de valeur en termes pour l'aquaculture et pour les métiers pour les femmes rurales et l'agriculture. Vous avez tous les deux, vous avez levé les barrières avec les différents investisseurs. Dites-nous quel est le moment où vous avez presque jeté l'éponge et vous avez voulu vous retracter. Et ici, on commence avec vous. Merci beaucoup, Madame, pour cette opportunité. Nous avons véritablement commencé de rien il y a 20 ans. Et lorsque nous avons rencontré une ancienne agricultrice qui avait tout perdu, tous ses produits, parce qu'elle avait voyagé 5 jours pour pouvoir amener son produit vers l'industrie. Et après 5 années, j'ai quitté un emploi payé pour aller dans les villages ruraux où la plupart des hommes avaient mis en place une usine. Mon premier défi était de trouver des financements. Et je suis revenue 20 ans plus tard. C'était très difficile pour les femmes d'avoir des financements, où un homme aura juste à faire 5 choses pour pouvoir lever 1 million. Une femme aura besoin de multiplier cela par 10, faire 50 choses pour pouvoir prouver ce qu'elle vaut. C'était difficile de trouver des financements. Peut-être une usine, mon rêve, c'était de pouvoir aller dans la zone rurale. Il n'y avait pas d'électricité, pas de pouvoir, rien. Tout ce que nous voyons, c'était des agriculteurs pauvres. C'était donc très difficile de convaincre qui que ce soit pour pouvoir investir. Mais après avoir fait certaines tentatives, un jour, une femme de la First Bank du Nigeria. Elle m'a demandé de venir voir un peu. Cette femme a l'air cohérente. Et elle est retournée au village et je voudrais voir ce qu'elle faisait. Et elle m'a dit, je suis surprise, les hommes n'avaient même pas fait 10% de ce que vous avez fait avec le montant que vous demandez et vous aurez l'argent dès demain. Et c'est comme cela qu'elle nous a donné les premiers fonds qui nous ont permis de commencer avec 17 agriculteurs, 3 femmes et 14 hommes. Et bien sûr, pour une année, la première usine, la deuxième année, nous avons une deuxième usine. Et nous ne pouvions pas continuer à monter. Je ne pouvais pas passer au niveau supérieur parce que les banques essaient d'imaginer dans leur esprit que ce qu'une femme arrive à un certain niveau, c'est suffisant. Vous ne devez pas chercher à aller un peu plus loin pour pouvoir peut-être trouver plusieurs millions.
I decided, no, at this point, let me bring in equity. So I looked for a female bias equity. When I say bias, I mean a fund that is for female. I came across Alitia Capital, and they were able to get blended finance for me, which gave me equity and a bit of debt in a mixture that was much easier. So we're able to climb to be able to have the very first cassava-based sorbitol plant in Africa. And that was possible because there was that finance that was available.
Thank you very much, Yemisi. Fumiko, what helped enable you to bounce back?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity. The moment I almost gave up is actually almost every day. Every time. Isn't it like that for you? So, well, there are thousands of reasons not to do, not to challenge yourself, or not to start up. You can stay comfortable, you can stay peaceful by not doing anything risky, right? So there are thousands of reasons, there are thousands of moments not to do, not to start up. But just one example of our very vulnerable beneficiary being supported, empowered, changed their life, can blow it off. So I grow organic cotton in a refugee settlement in Uganda. Refugee settlement is a place where the population of women and children is dominant because men are left behind in their home country or lost their lives during the insurgency. So supporting women there is more important than ever. In each support, every single hand can make a significant change in their life. So every time I almost gave up, the smile on the refugee woman brings me back to life.
Thank you. Now, people say that financing women is good, but you prove that it is above all profitable and innovative. How has access to dedicated capital changed things for you? And what strong message would you send to investors who are still hesitant?
Thank you very much. For me, it's been the number of lives that we have blessed, that we say the capital has ignited.
Because when we started Sultry, we went into an environment with no life, as it were. I mean, people were still, the women were primitive enough that they were not even wearing clothes. They were just tying, our initial videos, women were just tying wrapper. I mean, they had no life. Or they just think of little things to eat, and then the next day, and then the next day. But the capital that we have been able to put into the business, we have been able to put part of it to bless the lives of the community. Today, from just 3 women farmers, we have above 10,000 women farmers in our network. And what this means is they were less than $1 when we got there. Today, the women are above $10,000 a day. Above $10 a day in revenue. Because the amount of cassava that we buy in that community is about maybe $1 million plus $2 million USD per annum. And it comes from that environment. So if you can do the math, you can imagine that the people have been blessed. Also, today, they can send their children to school. It's directly proportional to the amount of funding that I get. Because for every time I build new factory, more farmers are being empowered. Their livelihood increases. For every time my vision, I have a new vision, they also are more or less having a new vision of increasing their field, being able to send their children to better schools and having clean water. Today, one of the major things we do is to ensure that we have CSRs that provide amenities like water, power, the roads that could, before you can't, 3 months of the year, you cannot cross my factory to the villages behind because there's a river that overflows this band. Because of our presence, we've been able to get government to do the road direct to the village and then to the farm. Women can easily now cross over every time of the year, even taking their produce to the market. So impact of financing a woman is profitable and is also impactful. Because you have the business thriving. When a woman has her business thriving, she can't see another woman suffering to eat and will not impact that woman. No matter how high-hearted that woman is, there's still that soft spot there to want to stretch your hand in CSR to help the community. So for me, it's directly proportional. For every funding we have gotten, we have grown profitably. We have also impacted the women who have also grown profitably in their own businesses.
Yes. And what feedback did you get from your investors?
Oh, they're happy about it. Of course, want to do more.
Okay. Thank you. Fumiko, for you, what strong message would you send to investors who are still hesitant, those who have been bold enough to invest on your project?
Thank you very much. In my case, in my context, I may need to expand the context a little bit. When we talk about investors, we don't only mean the investors who bring capital, but also the investors who are supporting our supply chain, value chain. The commonly asked question is why cotton? Why not food item, for example? But we chose cotton because we work in value chain. We have a dedicated buyer who is willing to support the market linkage. So that's the only reason, the only and a strong reason. So when we talk about the when we try to convince the investors, what I can say is probably don't wait, or if they would like to see the impact, they can be a part of the creation, the process of co-creation, not just to wait to see the change. They can be the one, I believe. And for us, we are ready on the ground to create together. So if the investors are interested in creating impact, they can just come closer to us to see the real situation and to work together.
Thank you, Fumiko. Now, creating jobs is good. It's important.
We know that this continent cannot grow and be sustainable without employment and revenue creation for everybody. Creating jobs, transforming communities is even better. That's what you have contributed to significantly with your project and businesses. What concrete actions do you recommend to ensure that every job you've helped create becomes a lever for sustainability and inclusion? Yemisi.
That's a very, very good question. Concrete actions that we have to take. I believe that one of the actions that we have to put in place so that when jobs are created, they are not lost in 10 years or 5 years. And then you go to that same venture, it's no longer running, is to get finance that is suitable to sustain that business in a profitable manner. Because once a business is profitable and continue to be profitable, jobs that are created will be permanent. So if a business is created and it's not profitable or is not having the kind of finance that can sustain it, or is running on a loan that is too high, such that that business cannot sustain itself profitably, then jobs created will not last. It means after 2-3 years, the business will start to go down, and then jobs from 500 jobs, it will go to 300 jobs, it will go to 200 jobs. Instead, it should be that the businesses are constantly looking for better funding, structural funding, blended funding that can make the business to continue to grow, and then the jobs are increasing from 200 to 300 to 500. In 10 years, they are doing 5,000, 1 million, and then it becomes something that can be replicated from one country to the other because it becomes a successful story. So I think it still boils down to funding, 1. 2 is the individual that is the arrowhead of the business must have that vision to take the business not just to remain at the small level, but to grow the business. Women should start thinking big, massively big. Let's be audacious. I mean, we have our sisters there to support us. Let's try and create big businesses like the men do and dream of it, nurture it from ground, but once you get to a certain stage and you don't grow big, you are likely going to die. So I think one of the things to keep these businesses, the jobs, is not to remain small, but to jump and ensure that the business are able to create massive jobs, and then the business becomes very profitable and is beyond the level of dying. Thank you.
Thank you, Yemisi. And Fumiko, what concrete action would you recommend for every job created to become a level of sustainability and inclusion?
Well, yeah, like concrete action I can probably recommend is like to involve different people, like from different sectors, not just your direct buyer, direct investors. I found it very important through my experience. I just talked about the off-taker, committed off-taker, which is very important to us. In the process of our project development, for example, we are now working on a small-scale mechanization of our farming process to overcome the physical disadvantage of female farmer. So we are going to do, instead of this, we are going to do like this. So we need a small walking tractor, and Japanese manufacturers have good ones, but they haven't really yet committed to the market. So we would like to involve them. We would like to approach to them so they can find a new customer in the heart of our refugee settlement.
Thank you.
An example.
Thank you, Fumiko and Yemisi, for sharing with us those such powerful insights. Today's discussions remind us
that investing in women entrepreneurs like Director Jemima and Vice President Marie-Laure mentioned, investing in women entrepreneurs is not just a good thing to do. It's smart business. It's a catalyst for inclusive growth. Thank you very much, lady. Let's turn these ideas into action. Let's support women-led ventures, advocate for gender-focused ecosystems, and let's maybe make sure that women in communities thrive and prosper.
Thank you, Yassine Fall. Thank you, Yemisi Iranloe. And thank you, Fumiko Miyashita, for this inspiring discussion. Time is running, and I will make it short. The key word is impact. Impact of the picture also. Eh bien, nous allons maintenant passer
we shall now move on to the panel discussions, which would, thanks to blended financing, and this one would be attended by leaders who deploy solutions for blended financing in the continent. To preside over this, an individual who is at the very heart of blended, Melinda Baskelo, coordinator at the ADB group. A sustained round of applause for her, because the work she's doing is quite extraordinary. But before handing over the floor to her, Melissa, we witnessed a very good panel yesterday. The first question today, after having worked for months and months on the preparations of the panel, what is your feeling yesterday? Because we really felt there was a good energy. How do you leave that meeting, and how do you prepare for today? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Salam alaikum. Yesterday's session was really a session which gave the tone. There was a lot of energy, there were commitments, pledges were made, and ideas were mooted that together we would support those ideas, obviously. What I want to add is that we had the privilege of having in our midst our leaders, two leaders in particular, our chairperson, our president, the president of the African Development Bank, as well as the Honorable Minister of the Moroccan Ministry of Economy and Finance. Both of us have shared with us their recommendations, which actually converge and which are articulated around 3 points. Number one, we had so this morning, we are not dealing with the issue of bankability. We are treating a problem of perception. Number two, we already have the instruments that exist. And the idea now is to enforce, consolidate these instruments so that they can be more effective. And the third point, we have to fast-track things together. We have to fast-track financial inclusion and in an effective manner so that women entrepreneurs, African women entrepreneurs, can have access to this funding that they so need. The figures were mooted yesterday, important figures which were mentioned this morning. Let me 25 million women supported thanks to ASAWA, 12,000 benefited from funding. Number one, more than $300 million mobilized over from the partners who believe in AFAWA from day one. Partners who support us today. It is important to mention this because we talked about leverage. We talk about the importance of mobilizing private capital, public capital. So these resources so mobilized indicate that this is a viable investment. This is a profitable investment because today we are talking about 2.8 billion. You said so yesterday of from that the financial institutions would give to women. 1.3 billion already dispersed. So the figures yesterday.
So let's watch the videos so that we can watch these women. My father was
cette passion, j'ai eu envie de continuer l'aventure qu'il avait commencé, passer d'une plantation de café à la tasse de café. Je fais la torréfaction qui consiste à transformer le café. Aujourd'hui, on est arrivé à un stade où la production de la plantation ne suffit pas pour l'unité de torréfaction que nous avons. Nous sommes obligés de racheter du café chez d'autres paysans, chez des coopératives. Mais quand on n'a pas suffisamment de finances, c'est plus difficile de financer rapidement la femme qu'un homme pour un même projet. On a entendu parler de Finel, qui est une institution financière, qui est un partenaire de la FAWA, qui milite pour les femmes. Nous ont ouvert grandement la porte et on a eu un accompagnement. Un premier accompagnement qui a été positif pour vraiment ne jamais manquer de matières premières. On est déjà à un bon parcours de la plantation à la transformation. Nous sommes sur la bonne voie et nous pensons que nous avons trouvé le partenaire qu'il nous faut, qui comprend le cri de cœur des femmes. Il est temps qu'on passe à l'étape d'après, de redynamiser l'exploitation et l'industrialisation, torréfier davantage, vendre davantage, offrir davantage du travail aux femmes. Je suis fière aujourd'hui et engagée plus que jamais de faire le rêve de mon papa, faire la synergie entre la terre et l'industrialisation. Parce que les femmes, elles sont dynamiques. Quand elles veulent, elles donnent tout.
Je suis Madame Françoise Kielende, femme entrepreneur, chef d'entreprise. Pour moi, c'est d'abord une vocation. Ma maman qui a payé nos études et moi, pour qui elle s'est sacrifiée, je devais faire plus. Et c'est pour cette raison que j'ai décidé de créer Est Habitat. Et c'est un long parcours. Est Habitat n'avait pas d'historique, Est Habitat n'avait pas de référence, donc je ne pouvais pas avoir l'accès au financement. Être femme, déjà, ça pose problème. Je dois travailler plus que les hommes pour prouver de quoi nous sommes capables. La Banque a mis en place le programme Ladies First. Et j'ai eu accès à des formations. Après les formations, j'ai eu accès aux facilités financières. Nous offrons les services de housekeeping. Nous faisons des car wash. Nous faisons aussi les transports du personnel. En dehors de tous ces services, nous offrons aussi un service médical. Au départ, j'avais 4 personnes et aujourd'hui, j'ai plus de 1500 agents.
Merci. Donc, remettre
Thank you
les femmes entrepreneurs
very
au
much.
centre de ce que nous
Women need to be at the heart of what we do. The African Development Bank and its strategic partners have shown us what it is possible to do when we combine good partners, good instruments, and the best ambition. But what we will be discussing today is how do we scale up? How do we attract more capital so that things move forward? How do we assist women entrepreneurs even more in a more flexible manner to help them go further? Without further ado, I'd like to invite the following 3 women to join us. Women leaders, leaders in economic inclusion, social inclusion, 3 change makers. Fatou Mataba,
founder and executive chair for Django Capital. Merci.
Founder and executive chair of Django Capital. Dorothy Nyembe,
CEO of MIDA.
President and CEO of MIDA.
And Nana Silla Koulibaly, Vice President of WIC Côte d'Ivoire. So, rebonjour, good morning again. We've heard about very inspiring stories of women entrepreneurs that have been lucky enough to secure financing to grow their businesses. But it's not necessarily the case for all. Many women entrepreneurs across the continent still struggle and have a really hard time to secure this financing. So I would really like to discuss and hear from you about the barriers that still exist, but more importantly, how we can really ensure to truly reach women entrepreneurs and how do we do it at scale. Et Fatoumata, je vais commencer avec vous.
I'll begin with you, Fatoumata. My first question is about what actually works. What matters is finding what really works. We know what the problems are, so let's highlight what really does work. Based on your experience, what works? You have proven experience working in risk capital for a number of years. Only a small percentage of funding worldwide goes to women. Could you share with us the blended finance tools that have truly allowed for the allocation of capital to digital and technological companies managed by women? Thank you very much, Melissa, and thank you. I think the previous speakers have already, in a nutshell, explained what this issue is all about. With regards to what works, well, we need to step up more urgently our efforts. There are guarantee mechanisms, for example, programs like Guarantee for Growth, which allow AFAWA through the African Guarantee Fund to mobilize hopefully $3 trillion for women. The senior vice president has also developed an initiative. We see in Latin America and Africa examples in Tunisia, what is being done also at APSA level. And this morning we talked about blended finance, such as first loss mechanisms. So this is very direct action, risk capital, led mostly by women, 70% held by women. Our portfolio today has 2 funds, one fund 56% for women, and a second 52% for women entrepreneurs. But to get to this point, and I'm sure Nana will talk about this when her turn comes, we need to make sure there is money for women in Africa as women investors. This isn't for the faint of heart, of course. So at the outset of this adventure, we spoke to a lot of stakeholders, public and private stakeholders. It was difficult to gain traction, but what really changed things was the moment when the African Development Bank came on board. They invested in equity. They created the Boost Africa mechanism, first loss in equity combined with technical assistance, TA, and this allowed us to gain traction. So we went from a situation where it was difficult to find investors, anchor investors, reference investors, to a situation where we had 60 million euros for the second fund. 113 funds is what we're expecting. Total subscribed in the level of 20% at present. This is very important. We need to get 78. And I think this is very important. We've been able, thanks to all of this, to invest in these women entrepreneurs. And we're proud of the fact that we have 25,000 direct and indirect jobs created now, thanks to these platforms. 30 or so that benefit around 83% of women in a direct manner. They sell products, services that benefit women. And what is also a motive of pride is that the entrepreneurial women we have invested in have allowed us to add to our investment. So there's a catalyst effect. And this is extremely important in the value chain. We need more creativity. We need more innovative mechanisms like the first loss mechanism. Thank you. Thank you very much, Fatou. Before giving the floor to Dorothy, in short, is that first loss mechanism something that should be combined with other types of instruments? Very quickly then. Yes, it could be first loss and TA, for example, that kind of combination, such as under Boost Africa, the MEDA program, also a reference investor, an anchor investor also did this. The Africa Growth Fund is also a good example. I think normally risk capital in Africa is financed by DFI. And we need to think about private institutional investors. We need to attract other types of investors now, commercial investors. Initially, we had African Development Bank, we had MasterCard, DFC, World Bank, among others, co-founders of KKA, the University Fund, African University Fund, first time they invested in high-risk ventures in Africa. So I think this is important in terms of first loss. This was a catalyst in terms of the amount, in terms of the value chain, and also in terms of the quality of the vehicles developed. Thank you. That's excellent to hear. Thank you very much, Fatou. That allows me to transition to Dorothy.
Dorothy, your work at MEDA really gives us a global perspective on why these tools, first loss, for example, that was just mentioned by Fatou, don't necessarily reach women entrepreneurs at scale because, again, it might be useful to have this complementarity that you've been working on at MEDA. So if you could please share a little bit more about the global perspective that you have and the biggest systemic barriers that actually prevent blended finance from reaching women entrepreneurs at scale. Specifically, I would like to invite you to speak about the practical mechanisms that you've seen that can help overcome the barriers.
Yeah, no, thank you, Melissa, and thanks to AFAWA and the African Development Bank for the invitation. Before I answer your question directly, Melissa warned us before this that we should stay on point, but some things that I heard before, I want to connect the dots. When Jemima spoke, she said some numbers we should remember: 194 million female entrepreneurs in Africa, 239 million by 2035. I don't know how many of you in the room had the opportunity. Arua Capital put out a report, in 2025. How many female allocators of capital do we have on the continent, like Django and Fatimata? And in 2019, we had about 10. In 2025, we have about 39. And the reason for connecting the dots is when you listen to EMC, what was the point in EMC's business journey that changed everything is when Alethea Capital, a female fund allocator, came into her life. right? So I want to just connect that dots. And so when we talk about scale, you know, how do we go from 39 to 3,000 female allocators on the continent? And I think that is where we sit, you know, as MEDA. Our role is to continue to build those female allocators, you know, like Fatoumata and others, you know, Alethea Capital, who are going to be able to then scale entrepreneurs, you know, like MC, COTS, and all the other ones. So just a few things that, you know, we've seen that are going to be important, you know, in this journey. Number one, whether you are a woman in Africa or a woman in Asia, as we heard, you know, from our previous, or in Latin America, the barriers have been the same. The only difference has been a lot of what has happened in those different ecosystems. So we still, as MEDA, we're doing a lot of work at the ecosystem, which is, number one, the big thing that we did as MEDA within Africa is to insist that when we go into fund, we are asking that the funds be domiciled on the African continent. And in 2022, MEDA had the opportunity to be the fund manager for the MasterCard Foundation African Growth Fund, which is the funding where we're trying to build into the ecosystem more female allocators so they can work with all these portfolio companies. To do that, you have to be domiciled in Africa. So we said, because that domiciliation allows us that the money stays in Africa to work for Africa. It's always easy to bring money from outside, and it will always continue to be. The second part that we've also learned to do, we are coming in concessional because we're coming in at the beginning of the ecosystem, but we want to make sure that from that piece where you come in at the beginning of the ecosystem, we're able to work with Django Capital, Alethea, Arua, to name a few, Vested World, Tree Ventures, all across Africa, female fund allocators, so that they can go past their first fund to their second fund, and that is sustainability. If you can only do one fund, you cannot do fund 2, fund 3, as we've seen in other parts of the world, it won't be sustainable. And the third thing that we're doing is really saying, for you to go from fund 1 to fund 2 and so on, there needs to be exits, right? Somebody needs to come, and we heard the MC talk about how she went to the bank, and you know, they think that she doesn't deserve to grow beyond 2 million. But somebody has to come, she has an idea, the people who invested first need to exit, so other ones come. So I think for us, 3 things that we're doing is not just really being intentional in looking for female fund allocators so that we work with them, but it is really making sure that the other aspects of the ecosystem are coming into play.
No, thank you very much. I think, yes, we need to address sustainability. We need to ensure that we have this continuum. And you mentioned them, Django, Alethea is not here today, but I mean, we have a kind of a representative. Yemisi is kind of an extension of Alethea in a way. But to build and to continue from what you were saying, I will invite Nana, which kind of is at the very last early stage of the spectrum, working more with an impact fund, Weak Capital. And Nana, I want to believe that the closest to the woman entrepreneur on the ground. And if you can please tell us about how Weak Capital actually has been structured to really address and respond to the needs of the woman entrepreneurs that you're engaging with. And we can switch in English. I should have, in French, I mean. We should have transition in French.
Thank you, Melissa. Bonjour tout le monde.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Good morning to everyone. I'm very pleased to be here this morning. LEWIC is the Women's Investment Club, an investment club created by women for women. This was done in 10 years ago, so we're turning 10 in 2026. We have 3 instruments. The first is the club, which brings together women who are investors who want to mobilize African capital, local capital, women's capital, and then leverage this capital through We Capital, our financing instrument. And then we have the Strengthening of Capacity initiative so that we can make women entrepreneurs investment ready. So these are the 3 levers that allow us to create value. This hinges mostly on the club. The club allows us to find the first investment, and it allows us to create a network of expertise comprised of our members. Women need a market, they need clients, they need a network in addition to funds so that they can go further. They need mentoring. So to have a mentor, a peer they can talk to face, someone they can speak to about their ambitions to try and see the way forward. So we have a $5 million fund. This is our first pillar fund, 2 companies, one in Senegal and one in Côte d'Ivoire. Now we're looking into the second fund. That will be $30 million. That will learn the lessons acquired from the first fund. And so we're going to continue strengthening capacity skills, technical assistance, networks, experts, and availability of resources to invest in the businesses that belong to the fund. Thank you. Remaining with Nana, WIC is an atypical model of women supporting women, women funding or financing women, women learning and teaching each other. Could you give us a specific indication of what is absolutely essential for success, the success of that model you have instituted that women can rely on? Thank you, Melissa. Well, I think WIC is truly innovative, but I think it's thanks to the people who set up WIC for women with the great talent and vision, sat together and created this project, incubated it. Often they tell us it's an association of women, and that makes us smile. That's not what we are. These are very talented women, really smart, intelligent women who created a business model piece by piece, year on year, invested their time. They now have 70 women in Côte d'Ivoire and 100 in Senegal, so almost 200 investors now, which is a significant number. And it works because we have combined 3 factors: proximity on the ground, in order to have a quality pipeline, in order to find women we can invest in. We need that level of proximity. We also need a network that will allow me to identify an entrepreneur that will go through different stages. When we do our work in the WIC Academy, we also have a friends and family fund where we test their capacity to receive the investment, the funds. We invest directly in the network to test whether it's working. When we feel they're ready, that they're ready to move forward, we go to a different mechanism, which could be a banking-based mechanism. We have one with ERG, we have microfinancial options as well. So we go into the banking investment solutions to make sure that we adapt the conditions to these women's needs. So credit that is a little more long-term, not as expensive. The African Development Bank helps us through guarantee mechanisms, because today when I have an entrepreneur that has gone through the Global Week and goes to a bank to ask for a loan based on their track record, we're now able to activate this guarantee mechanism through the Société de Garantie Côte d'Ivoire and EcoBank, other banks as well, who are backed by AGF. This allows us to follow the trajectory of these women. And then when this has been validated, we can look to a private equity that allows for further scaling. So our model allows us to observe, to test, to propose adapted solutions based on what we're observing, and then to go further. Excellent. So this follows on from what Dorothy said, so pre-investment and post-investment. Yes, technical assistance is very important. It's fundamental. As the Minister was saying earlier, we need this to be an intentional effort. We need to change people's perception of risk. I'm an accountant by trade, and I've always been on the boards of SMEs. We need to think about WSMEs now, be more intentional, make sure there's quality training in financial matters to improve the value of the business. We need to have the ability to generate quality of data, the track record. There needs to be greater traction, quality traction in terms of the perceptions of their businesses so that we can tap in as much as possible. Thank you.
Dorothy, we spoke about ecosystem strengthening and the engagement that you have with variety of actors, the MasterCard Foundation, but also the VC funds that you've been engaging with. Can you please share with us one specific example that has really led to unlocking commercial capital? So work that you've done, with these partners that translate into commercial capital being unlocked for the benefit of women entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, thank you, Melissa. Again, as I said, our role is really to move people within that ecosystem. So I'm going to use the example of, I got her permission, Arua Capital in Nigeria. So we came into Arua Capital to help her close her Fund 1. She'd been fundraising for almost, 5 years. And, once we worked with her and she helped her close and she started her Fund 2, it was amazing how quickly, within 6 months, she got to a first close of Fund 2. So the difference between 5 years, 6 months to just close, because once you close, you are able to deploy capital. And so with that, the DFIs came in, insurance companies have come in, the banks, right, and so on, Access Bank, the development part of it, they're coming into Fund 2. So what we are learning there is that if we can take the risk before and work with, our investment vehicles, as we call them, because like Weak Capital, they're not really a fund, it's an investment club, right? They're an intermediary. Whereas Django is a traditional fund, it's a VC fund, and VC is just one type of what's in the market and everything. So with that, we're able to bring in, commercial capital or domestic commercial capital to come into Arua Fund 2. The other thing that we are learning is that the pension funds that are domestic, they have trillions of dollars, even the banks, but they don't invest it in our SMEs. These 300 and so million women, they're investing it in real estate, in hard things, which are important. But how do we get even 10% of that into the SME space? And so what we are going to be offering as we move forward, with the MasterCard Foundation African Growth Fund is that we will always take the first loss equity position and everything. We're hoping to get to the African Guarantee Fund so that they can come in with the banks and then they will take in the second layer so that when our domestic pension funds come in, they can come in as superior debt. And so it's guaranteed, right? Because once we learn and we can begin to have data to show that investing in women, working with women, it's about a return. It's not about risk, I think as other speakers have said. So for us, that's one example, but we want that to go to scale. How do we do this? Show the prototype, produce the data so that we have it replicated by others and still with us, on the continent.
Excellent. So Dorothy, if we heard you correctly, the liquidity is there.
Yes.
But we need to leverage these blending resources to ensure that investors are comfortable enough to invest.
To invest. And I think just one last thing to add is we've also said, whether it's sultry, the SMEs have to be ready, right? So how do we do a lot of SME readiness across the continent, meeting them where they are with the kind of money that they want, but so that when money comes, they are ready to absorb as well.
Merci beaucoup. Fatou, une question.
Thank you very much, Fatou. Still talking about the impact with concrete examples, could we have an example of your approach to come up with significant results for the women entrepreneurs, for example? With pleasure. A number of examples come to my mind, and I think they're all important because as far as context is concerned, these are all traditional, and there's a habit of taking a lot of risk, and generally speaking, 70% of the startups are dead, which is called as the value of death. So I think in the last 20 years, a lot has been done with microfinance, and a lot has been done to get them to scale. So we need to invest at various stages. We have 50,000 euros. We have to assist them to go over this, Series A, Series B, and to simplify it. You need the approach to the market, the growth, the regional importance. And we have startups which have clients everywhere. And to get there, we need a combination of capital on these various stages. You start with 50,000 euros and 5 million euros to accompany them. But as I was saying a while ago, we need more capital. We call it smart capital now, and a team of people to be able to have capacity building. And I think for startups which are eligible for such financing, the women entrepreneurs, or for others which have a portfolio, so that they can start. You have to invest, for example, for those who have other extraordinary entrepreneurs who are working in an extraordinary fashion and trying to go up to deal with health in Africa, assisted by members of the family who are financing healthcare for people in Africa, in Cameroon, and in Cote d'Ivoire especially. And thanks to that, we have 97 women who have already got into the business, and they're impacting the area in general healthcare. Another example that comes to my mind is in Tunisia, a friend who has set up a market called Dapeshi. Before I became an investor, I was an entrepreneur myself, and I am well placed to tell you that in general, in e-commerce, you have 70% of men and 30% of women. So she came up with a market to assist women to sell what we have to other women. And in this country, with 12 million inhabitants, you have 3 million, and there are 200,000 women who are doing this and are able to have some income thanks to technology and everything that they can use. They have income. I have dignity in my home. I can pay for my children's education and take care of their health. So this is something I should be proud of in scale, especially in a country that men dominate. My last example is Anne in Nigeria, who has a platform which is called Sabi, and she collects international trademarks. In less than 2 years, she has 200,000 partners, and they work with over $1 billion. So in a portfolio which you call Series B, which is on scale, as Dorothy said, we need people who invest 15% of what they have in venture capital. In Africa, the rate is just 3%. We need them, and then we need the women entrepreneurs to move on to a different level. Thank you. That was my greatest fear, and thank you very much. And the example of entrepreneurs, as we said yesterday, it is very important. It is very important to take time to share this, because this is a very important inspiration which others need. So I'm going to ask you to say one word to conclude. It could be a call to action or a recommendation.
We want to accelerate the transformation and ensure that more Bolabardé can be supported. So please, your last word before we close this panel.
Invest in women fund managers. They deliver between 10 and 20% higher returns, according to the IFC. That will then invest in female entrepreneurs who deliver 71 cents to a dollar in return compared to 38 cents to a dollar for men. So the business case is very clear.
Yeah, I think for me the proof is right here that, investing in women is alpha. It is alpha. I have Django, I have Weak Capital, and we want to be able to scale this. So my call to action is that gender lens investing, blended finance is a journey. Concessional capital plays a role, but we want to be able to put on the same dashboard purpose and profit. So, and we can do it through this means. Thank you.
Merci. Moi, j'ai deux call to action. Le premier, c'est dupliquer le modèle du WIC dans vos pays. N'hésitez vraiment pas à nous contacter.
Do not hesitate to contact us. We will assist you to transfer this business with people who have been working for 10 years and who are working all over Africa. And the second call to action is to duplicate the single unit of that is financed by ADB and have a partnership which makes it possible to have a place where all the women will have all the information need for entrepreneurship and access to financing, their capacity to have training for them to be able to develop and have more women to get into the business. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much to everybody. I'm going to ask Mustafa to conclude, but we need to continue to speed up innovation and continue to diversify the various instruments to ensure that we have the greatest number of women coming on with us. Thank you. Please give them a huge big round of applause. All these women, we need to take a photograph for posterity, and I think that from last year the treatment would be different. We will go on to process what has been raised today, that women are not a segment of vulnerability. They are an active class with a strong potential that they can work for the next 10 years. Blended finance is no longer a test. It has been proved. It's an accelerator which is operational today, and we need to amplify. Lastly, a figure deficit, we need $50 billion, and that is an objective that we can achieve. What we have to do now is to come up with the steps that will make us do so. We need to think about the risk again. We need to innovate. We need to leave the space for another panel which is come. I'd like to thank all those who took the floor for their contributions, which we appreciated. We didn't have any man or any male person who took the floor. The women dominated, and that was good. And all the participants, to the interpreters who have been accompanying us for the last 2 days, to the technical teams which are behind, I would like to wish you a very good afternoon for this Africa Investment Forum 2025. And I am convinced that next year we will have we have the big hall, because we'll have hundreds of investors who are interested in the topic. Thank you. For those who are still here, please visit Rabat Town and come back to Rabat with your family to visit these places. We wish you a wonderful day and see you very soon. Thank you.